Hi, this is Dan Bullard sitting on the river, Multnomah Channel. I'm right over there. You can't see me, but that's where my houseboat is. I want to talk to you a little bit about inventions. And I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I just loved inventions. I was crazy about the space thing, and I missed the lunar landing, but I did get to see Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. And I was always inventing stuff. And I always wanted to be an inventor, and I finally got the chance. I got into the electronics business, and I did all kinds of stuff. And I invented a lot of things, but none of them were really patentable. Most of them were software things and stuff like that. But one time I did actually get to invent something that was patentable, and that was my smart card thing. And when you look at a smart card, a regular credit card with a smart card chip in it, let these geese go by. Boy, they're noisy. So if you look at your credit card, you've got probably a smart card. And the chip in there is supposed to be able to communicate to the server, whatever it is, the cash register, whatever, through wireless technology. Now, for years, they've made me stick my card in some reader, and I hate that. I mean, why did I go to the trouble? Why did I go to the trouble of learning about smart cards? Well, who knows? But I did come up with a really cool thing. My boss wanted me to get into it, and he told me, I want you to figure out a way to test these wireless smart cards. And the first thing I did was a really cool trick using an arbitrary waveform generator to test the smart card using something I came up with called a pallet AWG. I had worked on the Credence VistaVision, Vista Duo, Vista, whatever it was, quartet, and they had a packet AWG. And a packet AWG was very cool. You could make packets that you could loop on inside of a bigger loop to generate waveforms. And in fact, I used a packet setup to do color bars on a Credence quartet, and it was very cool. I didn't quite get it to work though because I ran out of memory. Another guy took it over, tweaked the numbers a little bit outside the specs of NTSC, and got it to work. And that was all because I did the work on the packet stuff. In fact, I wrote the article, I wrote the documentation for the quartet's packet AWG, and that was cool. That I was working with a tech pubs doc guy who was rewriting the manual for the Credence VistaVision Duo quartet, and he needed a section on how the packet AWG worked, and I wrote it. So that was kind of fun. I did all kinds of stuff. I've done hardware, I've done software, I've done but my boss asked me to look into this, and so I figured out how to do it with software, and then load it into the AWG on the Next Test Lightning, and that was pretty cool. The only problem is I just didn't have the memory on the Next Test Lightning AWG because it didn't have a packet setup. It only had one loop you could go through. So I just didn't have the memory to do it. But I read that goddamn spec, the ISO 14993. I read it for months. And I figured out how it all worked, what they wanted. And the secret was to be able to take data in real time and format it using amplitude shift keying, ASK. And you do that by shifting the amplitude. Basically it's AM, but a digital form of AM. And you have to be able to modulate the modulation ratio, that is a modulation index. You have to be able to modulate the speed at which the ones turn to zeros or the zeros turn to ones. You have to modulate you have to change everything, be able to change anything. And using an AWG was a smart way to go. So after I did that, I wrote this really cool piece of software it was C++, and so I got to use classes and stuff. It was really cool. And I really enjoyed it. But like I said, it wasn't going to do the trick because we just didn't have enough memory in the AWG. So my other boss, I had multiple bosses, kind of like that poor guy in Office Space. I have 10 bosses, and they're all telling me I'm doing everything wrong. No, my real boss was a great guy, Rick Carmichael. The project manager that I was working with, his name was Cliff, and he was from MIT, and I won't go any further. So he came up to Oregon to help me work on this thing, and a bunch of us sat in meetings day after day after day talking about how to make it work. And I said, hey, I got this cool thing that I wrote using classes in C++ that generate the waveform. It was very cool. I can't tell you how cool it was. It was really neat. Anytime you change any parameter, modulation index, the speed of the ramp for 0 to 1, 1 to 0, any of those things, it automatically recalculated the waveform. But again, it wouldn't work because the AWG wasn't deep enough. It didn't have enough memory. And what I came up with was a really cool thing called a palette AWG. And what that did is it took a data stream of ones and zeros and went to a memory that chose packets out of the memory to go out to the DAC and be modulated. And it was only 14 megahertz, so it was no big deal. Okay? So it was easy to do. And one of the coolest things about the whole thing, I learned everything I could about ISO 14443, is that the device, the smart card, is not powered by a battery. It's powered by a car going by. No. It's powered by the RF signal coming in from the transmitter. And so your signal can go large and small, but it can't go away totally because you'll lose the power to the chip that way. The chip actually takes the RF signal and takes that 14 megahertz signal and rectifies it to turn into the power needed to run the microcontroller. So it was a really cool thing. So you have one of those in your wallet, I'm sure of it. So I came up with this thing. Now my solution used 1 bit, and that's what ISO 14443 requires. But as we worked on it, we decided we should be able to go up to at least 4 bits. And so we did that. And basically what you do is you write in some form, you write the waveform segments that you want to put into the memory. And then the data coming out in real time selects which segment you select out of the memory. It was very cool. Now, like I said, I worked with a bunch of guys on this, but it was mostly my idea. And you know what happened? Yeah, they patented it all right. The project manager patented it under his name, along with me and everybody else on the team. And, you know, he was an admitted socialist. He told me that. Socialism is the best way to go. So basically, they took my idea and spread the credit out to everybody. Now I know the whole thing with, you know, the transistor and Shockley, and I think Shockley was complaining that Bertain and the other guy were getting too much credit, and Bertain said something like, well, there's enough credit to go around. Well, yeah, maybe, but if anything, my name should have been first on the patent. But, whatever, fine. So I got my name on the patent, but it was my idea. It was my invention, and I pulled it off. And it's very cool, and I expect a lot of things are going to work this way. The RF chip that they inject into pets works that way. And chances are that COVID vaccine you get is going to have that thing injected. See, as soon as I started working on this thing and I figured out its implications, I knew I was going to hell. I should have called it Project 666. But they can tell who you are, where you are, just by the chip that's implanted in your body or wherever. So it was a cool invention. It was kind of fun to work on, but I was not happy that other people got credit when it was my idea. It was my invention. But, what can you do, As far as the project manager getting his name on there, okay, it's true that he wrote it up. But let me tell you a little story. When I was working for Credence, I was in the marketing department, and they wanted to do a video about Gold Rush. Well, I was going down to visit my folks in the gold country down in California, and it was all about the gold rush down there. And I went all over the place looking for stuff I could use. Finally, my mom sent me a VHS tape that had a documentary about the gold rush, and it had a lot of pictures and things that we could use. So I gave that VHS tape to this guy who was doing the AV department. He was actually using my computer to do it, and he took some music that my boss got from his daughter. His daughter was quite the musician, and he combined it all together, turned it into a really great video, and they played it at the sales meeting in Hawaii. We went to a sales meeting in Hawaii. It was fun. And the cool thing was, everybody loved it. Everybody loved that video. But you know what? Despite the fact being the executive producer, my name was nowhere on that video. Nowhere. I let Ken Avdeef take all the credit because he did all the work. Now, I did a lot of work too. Hell, my mom could have got credit for it. But it's okay, I didn't want that. I wanted Ken to get the credit because he did all the work. And that was the big deal with getting that video out. He did the work, he should get the credit, and his credit appeared on the screen. My name was nowhere to be seen, and that's just fine. So why the project manager has to get on the patent for a project? Yeah, okay, he's running the project, but he didn't really do the work. He didn't write any code. He didn't come up with any ideas. He simply ran the meetings. Why does that happen? I don't understand it, but whatever. Anyway, that's enough whining for now. It's a lovely place. I'm having a good time. The weather's great. So this is Dan Bullard from the river. See you later.